So go to Hangout settings.
It should be live now. It is totally Belinda's fault. Hello.
There you go.
Yeah. I told everyone that this was my. Should be live now. It is totally Belinda's fault. There we go. Sorry, everybody. I know there's a bit of a lag there. That was completely Belinda's fault. I told you it was my first time using Google Hangout. I was all over YouTube, and there was a great big button in Google that said Start Broadcast.
Oh boy. So
we're late. Sorry. So thank you guys for joining us, and thank you guys for being patient. Today I'm so excited. We have two cool things we're going to be looking at from two very good friends of mine. One being Mr. Mariano. So
hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Mariano Gomez, MVP developer extraordinaire with McCormack. Yeah. And the other one is Steve Endow, like window, from Precipia. It took me a while to learn that, Steve.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a good Friday.
Okay, so you guys have some stuff to show me I'm super excited about. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first, and let Steve close it out with all the stars and banners as possible. So not setting any expectations too low for you, Steve, if you know that.
Okay, cool. Set it up easy for me, okay?
All right, so I assume I have to share my screen over here somewhere. Let's do that.
Now that I've got you guys all rattled.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
And
I am going to share my screen. All right. Let me know if that's it. Yeah, there we go. All right, so I have a simple scenario that I want to bring to light today, and that is something that we deal with almost on a daily basis for those of you who have to submit expense reports. Now, I want to make it clear that this is more of an intro type session where I'll show you how to set up some cognitive services. Then we'll use Microsoft Flow to basically take that that input from cognitive services and submit a report for one expense for analysis, a simple receipt for analysis. Now that's going to come back, give us some text information in an email, and that's as far as I'm going to take it. I also have a small Power Apps application that I developed that's going to allow me to take the picture, submit the receipt, and to my OneDrive, to a folder that I have set up for that, and then have the Flow consume that receipt, send it off to cognitive services, and back for final pass. So, anyways, with that small intro, this is my Azure portal, and here in Azure portal, I have a list of already resources that I wanted that I currently have set up in my environment. I'm just gonna add here to add the cognitive services report, or the cognitive services function, and that can be found under AI and machine learning. And if you look at it, there's a computer vision option here. So computer vision is what we're shooting for at this point. I'm gonna click on computer vision, and that's gonna actually set up the service itself. Service, as most Azure services, you will want to set up a name for it. You will want to choose a subscription among various subscriptions if you have more than one. You would actually want to set up a location for it. Pricing, I'm not going to dive too much, but suffice to say that there's a free option and there is a 10 calls per second type option. Currently, I have the free option enabled. Of course, I don't want to be paying for demoing this, so this is kind of where we're going to start from. And we also have the resource group that we want to assign it to. Now, I'm not going to go through this because you don't want to see me after this great introduction that Belinda did to us. You don't want to see me creating a service here. So I just want to show you that I already have a service set up for OCR, and that's a cognitive service. The most important thing to keep in mind here is you want to be cognizant of this endpoint. and you also want to be cognizant of the keys that are assigned. So those are two things that you get as part of this service. So the keys simply allow you to authenticate to the service in a secure manner. Okay, that's enough of the service itself. I'll come back here, but suffice to say, you also have the ability to track on your service, and we'll see some of that later on. Again, don't want to dive too much into this. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up a flow based on cognitive services. Now that I have the service set up, I'm going to start from a blank flow. What's going to be my trigger point? Well, my trigger point is going to be when a file is created in my OneDrive folder that I have set up for receipts. So I'm going to select the option here when a file is created. Be cognizant that there are two options. There's a OneDrive personal and there's OneDrive for business. So you will want to play a little bit around. It gets confusing every once in a while. But if I click here on the folder, I'm just going to go to root, or actually select from the list. I'm going to select my receipts folder, which I already have set up on OneDrive. Here on advanced options, I'm just going to have the option for the trigger point infer the content of the file. So I'm going to actually now click here a new step. And for that new step, I'm going to want to submit this to cognitive services. So I'm just going to try and type in Azure here. As you can probably imagine, there's a number of services that are, or actions that our Flow is able to create around Azure. So we will want to just scroll down until we see the cognitive service option for that. I might as well just type it. Okay, so here we have computer vision. Even though I typed cognitive,
I think we lost your audio, Mariano. I'm not able to hear you. Okay, and our assembled audience is unable to hear Mariano. Belinda, did we lose you? Oh, are you there? Okay, you're muted as well, Belinda.
There, now I'm unmuted. I'm not sure what happened there. And
Mariano, are you still there?
He is muted. Let me see if I can unmute him. He's just trucking along. I don't think he can even hear us. And is it the 13th? I know it's Friday.
Yeah, and we had this issue earlier with him getting muted.
Yep.
I wonder if
he's just going along. He thinks...
So can he not hear us?
I don't think he can because
I think he's lost audio. Hey, Mariano, can you hear us? We cannot hear you. You are muted. Okay, so I think his audio is dropping off, and that's what caused the problem earlier.
Yeah.
I tried to send a message.
I could eject him from the event. I could see that. Yeah, while Steve is working on trying to communicate. Sorry, guys. So YouTube
let me tweet him. No.
This is our first YouTube live, and I could probably try Skyping him. Let me do that. And
yeah, I don't have him on Skype, so.
We cannot hear you any longer.
Yeah, I don't think he has the YouTube stream up, so I don't know if he's seen our comments.
Yeah, I don't think so either. So let's see. He's just trucking along.
Oh.
Well, we can see what he's doing. So he's sending an email from the content.
Yep.
And
yeah, so the OCR step that you see above is part of the Azure Machine Learning, and that is integrated into Flow so that you simply send an image to the OCR to text step or task in Flow. It will convert the image to text, read what it can, and then drop that detected text out to you. So he's just composing an email where the detected text shows up in the email body. Okay, you just got the Skype message, I think.
did he read it, or did he?
No, looks like he just closed it.
Let me send it again. I'll keep sending it, making crazy. Yeah, so this is Flow. So can OCR, yes, I do love technology, Steve.
Yep.
But does the OCR and cognitive services, look at him talking. He's looking at that Skype beeping and saying, what the heck? I said it like 5 times.
I don't think I have his, do I have a cell? Let me try. Mariano.
So does the OCR, can you use that cognitive service for pretty much anything?
For the OCR step, you can, which I'll show a second demonstration. The challenge is the scan quality. And so it is challenged by many types of texts. Looks like he may be checking some messages.
There we go.
There we go. Okay. We may have got through to him.
Yeah, I think we did. He's typing.
Okay, well, what we can do, do you want to switch over to me, or
yeah, let's go
while we try and recover that?
So I'm going to turn him off from the broadcast, and let's present you to everyone.
Okay, hello everyone, and let me show my screen here. Screen 2, looks good. Share. Coming soon. Okay, so hopefully you're seeing my screen now, and Belinda, feel free and yell at me in the Google Hangouts chat if my audio dies.
Okay.
But so what you see here is my very first Power App, and I have never created a Power App before this, didn't know how to do it, didn't know anything about the process. So it was a bit of a rough road for me, and this might have been a slightly ambitious project for me, but it worked out. So it took me about part-time over 2 or 3 days to figure out all the components for this. But the first item I have is called a camera control. So this is a mobile format application. So this is to be run on my mobile phone. So you just drop in a camera control. I then added a photo controller, an image control, and I'll show you why for that. Then I have a button that calls a flow. It's a very simple button, and it calls this Power Apps Image OCR Text Flow. And then I have the output of the OCR. So let me just show you how this works. So over here on the right, I have my iPhone. I'm going to tap on my Power Apps, and I'm going to click on the Badge Scanner app, which is my demo app. So this is my badge scanner. And you see, let me unplug here, you see that I have a couple of badges here ready to be scanned. And I will just choose this first one, and I can just tap on this camera control, that little box on my phone, and it takes a still image so I don't have to sit there and keep the camera on it. And once it has that still image ready, I can press the OCR button. And you'll notice that it takes a few seconds, and It comes up with text, but it's a little bit noisy because there's quite a bit going on that badge. And so you see it did find my name and the readable text on there, but there's some oddness at the top. Instead of Summit, it said Stinnett. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try something different. I'm going to rotate the badge, and all I really need is the text that I want. So I'm going to retap that image. And you see, even though the image is sideways, I can press OCR, and it comes up with a much cleaner scan of the information I care about. So if an attendee at a conference comes up to me and I say, hey, let me email that to you, I can take a scan of their badge, press the OCR button, then I'm going to tap in the text portion here, clean up the name. Now that I have a clean OCR, I simply click on the drop downs. So rather than trying to figure out all the logic required to parse different badge types and formats, I can just say, okay, first name is this one, last name is this one, there's the company, and I'm going to put in an email address manually, ask them what their email address is, and then the phone number, and I'm going to click Save. When I click Save, it's actually going to go out to my Office 365 account and save this as a new contact. So if we go back over here, you see that contact just got created that quick. So from scanning the badge, confirming the fields that I wanted, and then submitting it, I now have this new contact. And I can edit that, and you see that first name, last name came in, populated the fields, and I was also able to tag a field. The Outlook interface isn't great. I don't have all the fields available, but I borrowed the department field in order to tag this based on the conference name. So you could do direction, summit, whatever the conference is. So now I have the contact set up. I can also do subsequent tasks. So let's take a quick look at how that was done. So you saw this badge scanner app, and you saw when I clicked on the OCR button, I called a flow. So let's take a look at that flow. This is it. And it's really simple, similar to what Mariano showed you. It takes whatever Power App sends it. I did some processing to convert the image to a binary data type. And then I performed that same Azure computer vision feature, and this step in Flow is pre-built to do that. You just drop the step in there, say take my image content and convert it. And once it converts it to text, it sends it back to Power Apps. So we can actually see the actual run that just occurred. And so it converted the picture I took to a binary image. And then the OCR kicked in, and this is what Azure sends back. I didn't have to do anything, zero code, and that gets sent back into Power Apps. So now that shows up in this text field, as you saw, and then I just have drop downs to make it easier to select. One of the interesting challenges with Power Apps was coming from a programming mindset. I thought, okay, how do I write the code to parse this text and get the fields I want? And it turns out that simpler is often better. So rather than parsing it, I just put all the values, all the lines from the OCR into a dropdown so that I could choose it. I didn't have to write any code to do parsing. I just said, okay, split the values, put them in a dropdown, and choose from there. So it was really simple. Then from there, the Save button also calls another flow, Create Contact. So I go back to my flows.
Before you go to the Add Contact, can you go back to the OCR flow for just a moment?
Okay.
I have a question on that one.
Sure.
That Azure function, the OCR Azure function, do you know if there's going to be a charge on that for people to use that or not? Do you know?
I believe at the moment the computer vision API is free, or at least I'm using a free tier. There may be some caveats, but I think when I looked at this, there was no charge. And actually, when Mariano set it up, I apologize. Mariano, when he did his demo, he did a setup, and there is a free tier that includes, I think it's up to X requests per second. So I think the threshold is 10 requests per second. So we are in the free tier.
Right. Mariano, you're back now. That's right.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to hear you.
Hey, thank you. I don't know what happened there.
It was probably Belinda.
At this point, let's blame everything on Belinda. That works.
Today that you got to pass on that. So go for it. Bring it on. Okay. I just wanted to know about whether the cost on that. Okay. Now.
Okay.
So now
yep.
you're next.
So now, yep, that was the scan. So now in Flow, if you've ever done a flow, it's very simple to add an additional step here. And I did the step to create an Outlook contact. And you can also send a subsequent email to say, hey, follow up. And this is another example of me being a programmer and trying to figure out, how do I parse this data? So Power App sends me this data. Well, let me figure out how to parse that with a carriage return line feed and get this array of badge lines. And I realized, no, it's not that hard. All you need to do is use Flow. Here, let me go back to my design, actually. Let me edit it. Flow just says, hey, you don't need to do all this. You just tell Power Apps what you want to receive. You just click here and say, okay, give me a value to fill out the given name or first name. Give me a value to fill out home phone number. And you just click on these fields and it creates these variables as placeholders to fill out. Then when I go back into my Power App, I just say, okay, great. When I go to run my flow or call my flow, you see it says, hey, you need to send in the given name. You need to send in the email address. It just uses these as parameters and tells me what I need to send in. And I say, okay, great. Let me send in the first name, the email, company name. I just send in these values. And then after I'm done, after that is submitted to the flow, okay, reset the fields to clear them out, which you saw. So it was remarkably simple. And my biggest challenge was thinking simple. I was thinking this would be complex, and it turns out to be very, very simple and easy.
Citizen developer.
Yeah, the thing about all these type of applications is you are still used to thinking as a developer, right? Where you now have to think about, well, how am I going to develop this service? And then you have to deal with the authentication. This
Right.
is all point and click and select.
Yep. Absolutely. There was zero code. The most complex thing I had to do was figure out how to populate my OCR in a drop-down. And let me see if I can find it here. I had to use a split function. Mm-hmm. That was the trickiest thing I had to do, was use a split function and figure out how Power Apps wants me to tell it that my splits are based on a carriage return.
Correct.
And it took me a while to figure out you have to use the char10 function to get that. It says, okay, great. I'll take whatever's in here. I'll split it. I'll populate it as options in a combo box. And okay, done. And that way, I don't have to care what the format is of the badge. I can just choose the values from the drop-downs.
That's fascinating.
Correct.
Okay. And then after I showed this to my family and said, hey, look at what I just did. So my daughter, 8-year-old, comes over and says, Dad, can I make a Power App? And I said, sure.
Aww.
And so she says, I like the toggle control. I really want to use the toggle control. So I said, great, let's put a toggle on there. What do you want to toggle? How about a photo? And she chose a kitten photo. So now it's the peekaboo app. So you can toggle the kitten to appear and disappear. So that took all of 2 minutes to do. So that's how easy this is to create a interactive app on a mobile device.
You need to put a little text on there. What's your daughter's name?
Sarah.
That says, bye, Sarah, at the bottom. Yep. I love that.
So she proudly marched off to her older sister and told her she created a new app. So.
Aww.
So that is the Power App.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that opens my mind up to all kinds of things that we would do at events, where we're walking around at different event. Who's going to do something on an event versus who isn't going to do something. And you know what? I just muted Steve.
Yes, you did.
Okay, so it's
back.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're kicking me out. I know.
Yeah, it's because I hid you. All right, I'm not hiding anybody anyhow. We're just going to let it bounce. So Mariano, will you go back and show us what you were going to do? And my hands are off my mouse
Yes, please stay away from us.
I'm going to put it on the chat. So now all I can do is type and move my mouse on the chat.
Okay. Likewise, I just wanted to go through the rest of this demo. So I think we're pretty clear from Steve's demo, from the initial part of my demo, what the flow looks like.
Hold on, Mariano. Tim had a question for Steve. How does the app get to the phone? I know the answer. Jen actually wrote the app answer, but would you tell us?
Got it. Okay, so let me show my screen again and choose. Okay, so when I created this Power App, I chose the Canvas app option. So for instance, if you click on File and New in Power Apps, I chose a blank app down at the bottom here, and I chose a phone layout. So again, I knew nothing about how to do this. I chose phone layout here, and it simply created this app for me. And from there, once I'm done with the app, let me just go back to the one that I opened. So let me go back to my badge scanner. Come on. So once I'm done making my changes, I can click on File and Save. Once it's saved in Power Apps, I have a Publish button. And once I click Publish, I have to, hold up, I have to have the Power Apps application installed on my mobile device, and I'll log in. So based on my login or your organizational login, you can share the Power App to people within your organization. I just opened my Power Apps, clicked in the little refresh wheel at the top there, and Badge Scanner just showed up for me. And so from there, I just click on the app. It's magical. There is no app store required. There is no publication process. It's literally just the publish button on the Power Apps website after I've saved my app.
And what's really cool, you saw the versions there, is the way the version control works. So if you've made edits and you're on version 8 and you do something else and you do 9 and you end up messing it up, you could take 8 and go back to 8, and that will now become 10. So it'll be the same 8 and 10, and 9 will be the screw up. So the versioning is really cool.
Fascinating. Okay. And I didn't even know about that. I'm just looking at the versions now. So I have 39 versions of my app, which tells you.
Yeah. And some of them might be, they could end up being the same. Okay, Mariano, up to you.
And Jen actually has a good point as well. When you're on your phone, you can click on the little ellipsis at the end of the app, and it will create a shortcut on your phone's screen. So it's a direct URL shortcut. So that is available as well.
I didn't know that. Thank you, Jen. Jen's a rock star. Okay, Mariano.
Okay. So again, I'm not gonna rehash the flow creation. I think you saw most of that, even though I was kind of muted at the time. But it's very similar to what Steve did. The same thing here. I'm sending myself an email just to get an update when the service is completed. So this all, stitch and select is just fantastic. I mean, I don't know that you will find anything that allows you to build this level of complexity with such simplicity. So the only one thing I did extra here was I created a Power Apps, very small Power Apps really, that allows me to capture the receipt or scan the receipt. Very simple. I added a couple icons, one to capture the picture, one to assign, one to save the picture itself. Now, this one in particular also uses a flow, just very similar to what Steve showed you. And because this is so in tune with bringing a level of uniformity across the board, anything I do here is no different than what Steve would do on his case, or anybody who's developing a Power App that will then use a flow to submit certain action out to either OneDrive. In this case, I want to save a file with a certain image. And this was also very simple. The flow itself will basically take the action from Power Apps. That's going to be my trigger point. And all it's going to do is it's going to create, point to that same receipts folder, create a file with the file name. Again, this was all point and click. I didn't have to do anything. All I had to do here was tell, Flow that it needs to ask him Power Apps for that particular value. Likewise, the file content, this is a small expression, and probably this was the most I had to do, where because the image is actually stored as a URI string, I just need to convert this to a binary entity so it saves as a JPEG. That's it. That's all. If there was any programming, this is all I had to do. Nothing really sophisticated. Now, I'm going to show you with my phone. Hopefully this works because I've been off the grid for a bit. So let's see. We'll go here and connect this. So hopefully this flies up. There we go. I see some icon here. And what I'm going to do here quickly is I have a receipt here on my desk. So I'm just going to go here. This is my Power Apps. Again, like Steve mentioned before, all you got to do is refresh the content. I published it. And there we go. You're seeing exactly what I'm seeing on my phone. I have a simple receipt here. Hopefully this works. And I'm going to capture this. And there you go. That's the picture. Submit that. And now if you actually see, we can disregard this by now. If you actually go back here, now I should have, hopefully, there you go. That's the file in the receipts folder, right? And basically, I'm expecting now that this Power Apps over here, this flow over here is going to pick up that that receipt. So I'm going to refresh this. Hold on 1 second. Let's just make sure that the file is a valid file. There we go. So hopefully this flow will kick off. Just do a quick refresh here.
Was that receipt for gas?
Yep, that's a gas receipt.
Yeah, you know, if you had a Prius like me, I've only bought gas once since August.
What's that?
I've only bought gas once since August.
Oh, yeah, there you go, because you have these fancy electric vehicles, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll give this a second. Sometimes it takes a couple seconds to run, but we should see the second. There you go, it succeeded. That's awesome. So now I can actually go and see this run in detail, just like we did before. If you want to confirm what happened and what was done, you can click here on the OCR input. Now we can just go here and see if the if I needed more information. There you go.
So you save that, Mariano, you save that as a JPEG. Could you save it as a blob into a SQL database?
Yep, I could basically, even better yet, I could actually have this send the image back to Power Apps for me, where I could probably analyze it, edit it, whatever, and then send it back to SQL or directly store it in SQL. There's no restriction or anything that says, you know, I can't do such thing. All it comes down to really is the imagination that you have, the business case that you're facing, and how you want to really address the use case that you are presented with. In this particular case, this was very simple. We would get this particular receipt, you know, send it off to OCR services, get back an email with the response. I'm just waiting for that email to come through my inbox, but it should be here very quickly. So what I found using Power Apps every once in a while and Flow is, depending also on the traffic that Azure has at certain times of the day, certain things might be immediate, certain others might not. But as you can see, you know, the run history pretty much is immediate. So I don't see really the limitations to me that come to mind are those that are in your mind and what you need to do to make things work for you. So
well, we did encounter one potential limitation with the OCR, right? And so while the OCR is impressive in that without any code, you can just fire off a flow that takes an image and recognizes the text. In Flow, at least, you don't have any parameters or options or configurability as to how that OCR is performed. So if you have a really messy receipt with poor printing, it can send back a lot of noise, and the formatting isn't there. So it's just raw text, unformatted, and so that could be challenging. So that's why in my demo, as you saw, I zoomed in on just the name and the company that I wanted to, and that allowed it to isolate the text. And because in my case, you know, conference badges, they're nice, clean, simple printing, large font, it was able to do that easily. But if you test with other smaller fonts that, or say a receipt that has very poor challenges there. So we were discussing the challenges of OCR yesterday.
Yep. To that effect, I think we came across an article as well that we pulled up. You know, if you think about receipts in particular and how each receipt is almost unique to each vendor who issues them, you know, the challenges of parsing out a receipt could be astronomical. In fact, there are some mathematical theories that go behind parsing receipts that go down into some levels of detail and use complex analytics to get it done. But as Steve and I were discussing yesterday, I think with the progression of AI and ML, these things will probably become a lot easier in the future, in the near future. But right now, it's kind of you know, very complex task to parse out a receipt. Maybe if you are familiar with one receipt format, then you create a template for that and apply that template every single time. But other than that, you know, it could be a challenge to parse out a receipt.
With that said, both of us were able to do a demo of this with zero code. Zero code. It's one action in Flow, and like you said, converting the image to a binary format was the most complex part of that process.
So I have a question for each of you. The connectors you had, the OCR connector and the cognitive service connector, were those connectors that were pre-built out in Flow already?
Yes.
Yes.
Cool.
Those one thing to note is the OCR connector, both the Vision service and the OCR connector, I believe, are still in preview. The OCR connector for sure is still in preview in Flow. So I'm sure these things are going to get developed even more, and you will have, you know, even more capabilities probably by the time they are launched into production. I don't see the Flow team working these things separately from the Azure team or the cognitive services team. So I'm sure as those two teams work together more, they will find that some of the challenges that we're talking about might be, you know, dispelled as you know, closer to production. So I don't know. This is going to evolve for sure. I mean, I'm sure there are things that we are not aware of. There's a full SDK around the API. There's, you know, you can probably visit that online and take a look at it if you want to know more about OCR or even vision, computer vision, or even the higher category, which is cognitive services.
And also the computer vision does have a barcode scanning API that I saw. I don't believe that is available in Flow from what I could tell, but that API is available. So it is possible to make those API calls directly from Flow, even if you don't have a predefined action. And again, those are essentially zero code. You just need to paste in a URL, your authentication, and submit the image file to the API.
You know, just the ability to call REST services from Flow, or, you know, target any REST endpoint from Flow will give you that capability out of the box without even having a predefined action for it. So, you know, it's amazing the amount of stuff you can do without really, literally, with zero code.
That's for darn sure. And not to steal his thunder, but Shane Young, Power Apps MVP. Steve, were you on that same call yesterday that he and Daniel Christensen was on, the Power Apps user group call?
Yes.
So Shay did something that was pretty darn awesome, and he got my wheels spinning on it, thinking about it. So he has a Tesla, so he built a power app where he can unlock the car, start the car, or turn the air conditioner on, and which is pretty cool. But one of the things that he said that kind of surprised me was that he built it where the APIs were actually handled in Flow, and I thought that was interesting. So that kind of got me thinking, I wonder what I could do inside of that. So, you know what I mean?
Well, one of the demos that I've done is for Dynamics GP, the Flow demo, is I take the customer address or vendor address, whoever it is, say a customer, and I'm able to take the field values from the GP SQL database, use Flow to retrieve those fields, submit it to the Avalara Avatax web service, and get a return. So I could see what I can validate their address, I can get the latitude and longitude, I can get all of the tax entities that apply to that address, state, federal, local, municipal, and it returns that all from the Avatax API, all done via Flow, zero code.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, likewise, one that I did related to Dynamics GPU as well was use the proximity sensor to determine my latitude, longitude, send that out to Google, to the Google Maps API, and get back a contains the route that I should follow to get to a particular customer.
Now, you showed some of that at the GP Tech conference.
Some of it, yeah, not completely all of it, but some of it.
Do you have that app on your machine that you showed with the GP Tech conference? I'd like you to show me again if you have it quickly.
Yep, let me see if I have it quickly available here.
Because I'd like to see how you use that text field for the URL to get, what was it? Was it Bing Maps or Google Maps?
Yep, correct.
Yeah, I'd like to do that again.
Let me double check here.
And while he's pulling that up, the one challenge that we're seeing with API calls is the handling of the resulting JSON that gets returned. So very few APIs return super simple JSON responses, and every API returns a different payload structure. And so the most common problem I've seen every time I try to call an API is the JSON structure that gets sent back is so complex that oftentimes Flow cannot handle it, or it can handle it, but there's just too much data, too much depth to the structure for you to be able to easily pull out the fields that you want. So we're both working on figuring out a way to handle that. I don't know if that's going to require an Azure function, custom code, or if Flow has that capability. It's one of my projects that I'm looking at.
Cool.
Yeah, so I think you're seeing the app on the screen right now. Aaron Fitz, our favorite customer from Dynamics GP. If we click on that, it will actually show me, and this is all using the Google API, it will actually show me the location of that customer. At the time, the sample that I did simply allowed me to submit a message to the customer. So, you know, I'm in the area type thing. And just a quick submit would get me there. There is a second version of this one, which I haven't really, you know, it's on my personal Power Apps tenant, you know, that uses the same concept to go back and get a JSON payload for the address and the directions. Now, the only one thing I haven't figured out, because a lot of this stuff is still, you know, new to me as well, is how I take that JSON payload and actually create a route distribution on the map itself. So, but you know, as Steve said, the thing is, the payload is so complex that Flow cannot really parse it. So I probably have to end up setting up like an Azure function or something similar to parse that API out, or, you know, Googling it with Bing to see if I see someone out there who has some sort of parser already in place. But you know, this in particular, this took literally zero code to implement, more than just submitting Aaron Fitz address or the address in the gallery to the Google service to get this implemented.
So The map itself, you just used a URL for the map though in the
correct. All I did was a call to the web service, and the Google Web Service returned the actual image, which I use as a as a basis for the image file here. So
does your slider zoom in and out of the map?
Oh yeah. So this was actually cool because Google Maps allow you to obviously zoom in and zoom out of a particular area. I just did this implementation, and it can tell you, back and forth how how out or in something is. So it gives you those zooming capabilities. So that was pretty cool. I found that to be really really neat to implement.
Oh yeah, especially if you have that on your phone.
How the heck did I not show you that at the conference? I could have kicked your butt with that one.
Yeah, then maybe you wouldn't have had that. You wouldn't have had that 14%. By
the way,
41%.
Just so you know, the email.
Oh, okay. You're cutting in and out a little bit on audio, and that wasn't me.
Just got to receive. It's a proof. Yep, just a simple proof of concept that this stuff works.
Cool. A couple of notes on some things that people have said during the process. Carrie did point out that Carrie Hadley, the one who won the Power App Shootout.
Oh, that guy.
At the tech conference, I could see him smiling now as we laugh at that. He pointed out that those versions you can export to others just right from that list. And then before we move to Chi, I want to get your name, say your name exactly right. How do you say? Steve, do you know how to Chi?
I think
Chi Chong.
Chi Chong Ho.
Chi Chong. I'm always worried I'm not saying that right. He's just a wonderful guy. But before you get onto that one, you said you had a problem exporting some of those before?
Yeah. So when I went into my Power Apps, let me see if I can show my screen here.
Then while you're getting your screen together, so Chi Chong was laughing that I don't have a Citizen Developer headband on since I had my T-shirt made. Wish I'd have thought of that.
So when I went to my Power Apps and I tried to click on, where's the export?
Go to see all versions.
Okay, so files, yeah. And for instance here.
Oh, no.
I thought it was under file, but
no, go back to apps. I'm sorry.
Oh, here we go. So for instance, I tried export package here, and maybe there's a different way to export. When I did export package, at least yesterday, I get this. It looks like it's triggering a flow, and that flow no longer exists.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. I've had success with Power Apps that did not have flow on them, but I haven't tried one with flow. And
interesting. So it may be my use to flow that's the problem.
Maybe Carrie knows the answer. And then meanwhile, we'll move on to Chi Chong. How do you say it for me again, Steve?
Chi Chong.
See, and don't Chi Chong. Don't feel bad, Chi Chong, because I pronounced Steve Endow's name wrong for years before.
She always butchers people's names. Don't worry about it.
I do. I'm just going to call you Chi. So he was bringing up using Python script, and I made me laugh, Steve, because the three of us were on an MVP call the other day, and they were bringing up Python, and I sent Steve a message saying, "You told me recently you wanted to learn it. Here's your opportunity." So,
yeah, machine learning and AI apparently use Python as their main script, and yeah, I don't know if my brain can handle another language.
So,
hey, just to note here, there's the package. This is the export package string. In your case, I think you had deleted the flow, and that's why it ended up.
Got it.
Yeah, but pretty much you can export everything, including the flow. So all you gotta do is like fill it out, and that's it. I don't know. Select the environment, I guess. And,
okay. Cool. So the problem's just with my Power App.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
So it was you. It wasn't me that time, but you could blame me today. So yeah, so handling that JSON, there are some really quirky things about it. You guys, and Carrie was on that thread too, but Mariano was the one who figured it out. I was having problems dealing with my JSON date.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Right.
That guy Jason and your dates, Belinda.
Yeah.
Never date a guy by the name of Jason.
Right? I mean, it was really weird because when I would test it in the connector, I could put in a date just like a regular date. But when I was using it to write back into GP using our JSON APIs, our JSON-based APIs, then I had to, what you said, you called it the full ISO 1186 format?
86 something. I don't remember what the exact ISO is, but anyways, handling dates, you need to use ISO standards. Otherwise, it becomes pretty tricky to do things in Power Apps and Flow. Yeah,
I got it working, but woo.
Yeah.
Woo.
I think in your case, you wanted to save something to SQL, right? Is that what it was?
Yeah, I was writing. For our Power GP Online, we have an API system, and so it uses RESTful JSON. And so I was writing back. I was doing batch approvals. So we use eConnect, and so I was doing payables batch approvals and writing back and approving the batch, which is pretty fun. So cool.
Awesome.
All right. Any sorry again, my apologies to everyone, and thank you guys for being patient on the start. If we do this again, and I definitely want to because I love the show and tell feature. Carrie, I see you're still on. I'd like to see some of the things that you're doing. So I'm going to beg you to sit in. And now I know. I'll tell all of you guys now if you're ever on showing me stuff. And Chi-Chong, you too, if you've got some stuff that you've done in Power Apps Flow or Power BI. Just remember to yell at me at the beginning, press the start broadcast in Google Hangouts, and I'll be good to go. So that's why I'm not a developer. But any closing thoughts from you two? Mariano, we'll start with you.
A lot of folks might look at this and say, these guys, all they do is play with advanced technology. Well, to be honest, this is something anybody can do. The concept of citizen developer, although it sounds esoteric, is one of those things that is truly applicable in this case. I would encourage anybody to just take a simple Azure service, set up a simple flow with it, and see how far you can get with what you're doing. And this, Steve and I constantly bounce ideas around with Belinda. Do the same, bounce ideas around with the rest of the community and understand, what the needs are, and go for it, tackle it, see if you can make something happen. Really, some of this stuff is not even rocket science. I believe Microsoft is really taking the rocket science portion out of it, to the point where sometimes we twiddle our fingers asking ourselves, are we going to have a job tomorrow? But your job is going to be to really understand this stuff and really communicate it clearly to the customer so they can envision a solution out of it.
You're exactly right. And a good example of that was when Steve was talking about he was trying to do that parsing as a developer instead of thinking of it, in terms of, non-developer related. In a weird way, this is almost Access-like, only with much cooler, more advanced things.
Funny enough, to me, it's like a version of PowerPoints and Visio.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It truly is visual programming and at its finest. That's for darn sure. Yep.
How about you, Endow? Any thoughts on it?
I think that's a good point about just finding a small project and giving something to try. I think the first hurdle is having an idea that you want to implement in Power Apps or Flow. That's actually quite challenging because it's a new tool and you're trying to figure out how it can be used. So in my case, I recently did a blog post and a video showing how in just a few minutes you can start from scratch and create a brand new Microsoft flow that serves as a custom web API for a product like Dynamic GP. You expose a public URI or URL that's an endpoint for a web service. It can receive JSON data. Flow can process it and do whatever you want with it. It can drop it into SQL Server tables, and literally 0 code, 5 minutes, you can be up and running with a web service. Pretty phenomenal. And as you saw, in my case, it took several hours for me to build my app, but I built a Power App that scans a conference badge, OCRs the text, and saves it to Microsoft Outlook just with 2 clicks on my phone. It's really, really crazy what you can do with these new technologies without programmer background.
Right, and the creative part is definitely part of it. Some of you who attended GPUG Summit or Power Summit, depending on which one you were there, you probably saw a guy one of the guys walking around with a camera was actually Brian Dang, and he is just the coolest guy. He works for Microsoft. He's on the Power Apps team. And he used to be a teacher of, like, I think 2nd or 3rd graders, he said. I think I got the age right. And he started developing apps to help the students learn. And so, you know, Microsoft caught wind of it. And anyhow, now he works for them. And so I was asking him, he's just a fascinating guy and I just adore him. And I was asking him, like, what kind of things did you build for your students? And one of the things he did was at the school, he built this library structure where each teacher could enter in their own library. And then together they pulled them together and had this bigger virtual library, which was pretty cool, a pretty cool concept of being able to do that. And starting with the idea is definitely powerful. I'm going to try to share my screen real fast.
Yep. I just want to do a shameless plug here. I just went through this course. It's called Developing Business Applications with Microsoft Power Apps, CDS, and Flow. I strongly recommend, if you want to start getting your feet wet, this is probably the way to go. This course is absolutely free. It's on EDX and is actually hosted by MVP Shane Young. He's also a business applications MVP. So I do encourage y'all to really go through it. If you're just getting started, you want to get an idea, self-paced, you know, with clear instructions on how to move forward, this is it right here.
Yep, great course.
Yep, and Shane is the one who did that Tesla app. And here's an example of just thinking about it. So this is using our Power GP Online. Here's a batch approval one that I did. Watch, oh, I only have 1 batch left. That's unapproved, but I can click on it. I could look at all the transactions in my batch. I could even drill in and look at the individual transactions. And when I'm ready to approve it, I simply click on Approve Batch. The batch has been approved, and I've now approved all my batches. So that's something that you could do pretty quickly without, you know, being too earth-shaking. So that's just a super simple little app that was created that makes life easier.
Well, I think we started at 2:15, so we have 1 more minute left. Any other questions coming down the pipeline?
Oh, Corey says someday when he finds extra time, he'll dig in. Come on, Corey, you could do it now.
Yeah, you could do it, Corey.
I think a point that you made, Belinda, is a good one, and I think it makes sense to work with simple use cases, simple scenarios, simple requirements, because if you start with something really complex, Power Apps and Flow just may not be the best platform, and it's difficult to learn. So I think these super simple scenarios get started and makes it a lot easier to have something that works from start to finish in Power Apps and Flow.
Agreed. Well, thank you guys for the show and tell. I've been anxious to see what you were going to show, and we're going to do it again in another maybe 2 weeks or so.
Yeah, we promise at least the technical difficulties will be ironed out by then. So hopefully, you know, my audio doesn't die and Belinda can start the show on time, and you know, we get started from there. But you know, we invite everybody to join in and say, hey, I want to show you something, and you know, if you show us something good, we'll put it up here, and you can get to run the show as well.
Right. And if you guys didn't see it, I kind of like, I want to get Mariano and Steve's reaction. Did you guys see the little image I made of us?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes. That was
awesome.
rather epic. I love it.
I like the tights.
Yeah. So for those of you who didn't see it, I labeled us the G-Pug Trio. I don't know why, but yeah, there we are looking. I'm looking svelter than I've ever looked.
Looking sexy.
Yeah. Steve, you're pretty buff there.
Oh boy, love Steve's 20 pack. That looks like a 20 pack right there.
Yeah. I couldn't decide which one of you to make the big fly. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it suits me. Anyway, this is going off the rails.
Yeah, on that note, we'll leave everybody. We'll leave everybody there, and yeah.
Have a good Friday, everyone.
Okay.
Yep. Have a good Friday, everybody.
All right. Bye.
Okay.
Darren actually wrote he expects us to be dressed that way at Summit.
Oh, you did not want us to dress that way.
I think we're still live, Belinda.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good Friday, everyone.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.